still have the score report of when I failed, and I have the score report of when I passed. And I think it's important to remember where you started, even when you're far removed, because it's like a mere memory, right? But then it feels like yesterday at the same time. At least for me, it does. I remember being broke and stuck and not being able to put two pennies together. And now I'm sitting on a $400,000 business that's growing. I just found that out as of yesterday, what I just did in 3 years. My accountant. Yes. I was like, what? I literally cried for a good couple minutes because I started out with no money, no overhead, no nothing.
Welcome back to Secrets of a Corporate Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtain and unveil some of those secrets with tips and tricks that you can apply today to start taking control of your career and progress up the ladder faster. Today, we are talking about unique journeys to success and the value of a service mindset with Shara Ruffin. I'm so excited to have her on, you guys. And Shara has over 23 specializations in grief, personality disorders, family trauma, compassion fatigue, military counseling, mindfulness meditation, ADHD, and anxiety. She is a specialist in the social working space. She has such an amazing origin story. So welcome, Shara. We're so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Very excited.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about you? I know you and I got to catch up the other day, but I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about what you do and how you came into the market.
Sure. So my name is Shara, as most of you guys have known through Kendall. I'm a clinical social worker, over 18 years experience in the field. I am now in the entrepreneurship space the last 3 years. I birthed my company, Journey to Licensure, which helps social workers pass their board exams. I also do supervision for them remotely, and I also do professional development and career coaching for social workers in that space. So that's the kind of, I think, the roundup version. But I also work with LinkedIn as an honorary LinkedIn advisor on the platform. I'm also their top voice in social work out of 1 billion users on LinkedIn. First social worker to receive that accolade. My business has been in Business Insider, Success Magazine, and USA Today. So yeah, things are pretty much booming. I guess I could start with my origin story and how I got into my business. So my 6-figure business was birthed from a story I told on LinkedIn. I couldn't pass my board exam. At the time, I had about 30,000 people follow me at the time on LinkedIn. And I started sharing that I was really struggling to pass my boards. I had missed it by 2 points in 2019. And I shared that to the whole community, a small stadium of people, and I started sharing the depression, the anxiety I went through for about 8 or 9 months after. 3 months later, when I was supposed to take the exam again, initially taken in November, I was going to take it again in March of that year, March 2020. We all know how the world just stopped at that time. A week before the pandemic started in Philadelphia, which is where I reside, I had lost my part-time job and I was just home with the kids, feeling stuck, really depressed because this was my whole career. This license took me 18 years. If I got to think about the beginning of my social work career up till now, it took me about that to get there. 10 years to qualify for it because of life happening. And when I failed it was like a blow to my career path or trajectory that I was on, initially thinking I was going to go into private practice as a therapist. Of course, that never happened. I had been a therapist for half the time that I've been in social work, but I ended up, that story ended up blowing up. It's still in the featured section of one of the first stories, in my profile. I got over 100,000 impressions. And I was like, well, what are people responding to? That was when I passed. The whole year after I failed, I was doing videos every day, whether I was cooking, cleaning with my son, and just sharing that journey of depression, the stagnation, the financial fallout, the really not knowing where my life was going to go after that. Me sharing, I didn't know that I was building a brand on the back end. No idea. I was just like, look, y'all, this is real life. This is where I'm at. I'm not feeling very well. and the mental health piece of sharing that I had anxiety, that I had depression, that I was struggling with ADHD, which I didn't get diagnosed with officially till March 2020, and then coming to terms with what do I need to do to get out of this rut. It wasn't until August that I ended up getting a psychiatrist, getting on medicine for the first time for my anxiety and my ADHD. And then taking a more holistic process to passing my boards. And it's the same process that I use with my clients 3 years later into it. And over 1,000 social workers later. So that's the short story form. But that's how my journey started, was sharing that story, from a post. Every time I think about it now, it's just like, I'm still sometimes flabbergasted by the trajectory of what happened after, from just a post.
Yeah. And I think it's so amazing, your story, because so often many of us, we're struggling with failure, with rejection, with something that goes wrong. Many of us struggle with ADHD. I know you and I have talked offline about, we're both very easily excited with different new ideas. And I think that's part of the reason why our businesses go in so many different directions. But what I think is so amazing about your story is you're in a negative headspace, you're struggling with all of these things, and yet still you worked, and still you grind, and still you're posting daily videos of your life and how that's shaping up. And I think that resiliency in a difficult period, right, just so much speaks to your character. And it's something that I wanted so badly to share with my listeners, because I think a lot of the time when we start to get down on ourselves, it's very easy to feel like, oh, well, I failed my test. Maybe I'm not meant to do this. Or I'm feeling depressed because I lost my job. Like, maybe there's nothing out there that's going to make me feel fulfilled. And then here you are, fast forward 3 years, so much amazing growth from that one video, so much amazing business success and mental success and monetary success that goes with that, that it is such an inspiration to so many people. And so I'd love to hear, now being on the other side, you've come from this amazing origin story, you've had this incredible success. What is your business mindset? How do you think about continuing to build and scale your business, and how do you connect with your clients knowing kind of where you came from and what you offer now?
I think what keeps me probably grounded in the work that I do is remembering where I was. A lot of the clients that I help, they're a past version of me to some regard. And that's how I look at them. So in that, actually it's funny because a lot of my clients don't keep their past and score reports. I still have mine from 3 years. I still have, it's a part of my story. I still have the score report of when I failed, and I have the score report of when I passed. And I think it's important to remember where you started, even when you're far removed, because it's like a mere memory, right? But then it feels like yesterday at the same time. At least for me, it does. I remember being broke and stuck and not being able to put two pennies together. And now I'm sitting on a $400,000 business that's growing. I just found that out as of yesterday, what I just did in 3 years. My accountant. Yes. I was like, what? I literally cried for a good couple minutes because I started out with no money, no overhead, no nothing. And when he said that, Shara, 3 years, you have made 400,000 in gross sales. And I was like, what? I had to sit with it. I really had to sit with it. And it's not about, I want the listeners to kind of put in perspective that when I started, I wasn't trying to sell. I was just trying to help people. I spent first 6 months, just helping people freely. And then I had a good conversation with Eric Reed. I'll always put him out there. He's probably going to like, oh my God, she's talking about that story again. But he's actually one of my first mentors who taught me really well that I had something that was very different, not just helping people with the boards, and that I needed to cultivate that. And I needed to, put a value price on it. I said, oh, people can't afford that. And he said, no. This has more to do with you and how you value yourself than it does with the people you're serving. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that, ever, because that literally changed my mindset about how I view myself in money and what I had to give a value. And in my field, we're taught to give. We're not taught to, money is a taboo for social workers. Because the stigma and the stereotype behind giving, and not receiving in return. And to be able to go from not having any money to feeling stuck and, really stuck, to making 6 figures in 6 months my first year. And then going from that to, almost at $500,000, if I make it I will make it next year. It's in 4 years. I can only imagine where it will go. So it started from me saying, I just want to help people. That is it. Nothing else, nothing more. I never thought about money at all. And thank God I didn't, because I think when you get caught up in the grind of how much you'll make, you get away from the reason why you birthed the business in the first place. One of my friends I was talking to yesterday when I hit that milestone, she said, you never thought about where this could go? No, I didn't think about that at all. And she said, you literally are living other people's dreams. And I thought I was just going to be in private practice. I never thought that I would be building something that ultimately could go in so many directions, and not just revenue wise, but, in the impact of the lives I would touch through what I was doing.
I love everything
no idea.
you just shared. It's so powerful, and it's a good mindset to maintain, right? Is not losing that service mentality with success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the listeners of this podcast, they work corporate jobs. Maybe they're starting their side hustle in their entrepreneurial journey, but maybe they're just really looking to progress in their careers in corporate. And I think that same mentality applies. If you go in with the mindset that I'm going to help my company do better, I'm going to help my team do better, I'm just there to serve those around me and to add value and to bring, I had another guest on the podcast who called it your X factor, right? And Shara's X factor was her authenticity and her ability to share her personal journey and then turn that into an opportunity to help people pass this very challenging exam. In the corporate world, if you have that X factor, you should be bringing it to help other people. It doesn't matter how high up you get or how much success you find, as long as you're really coming back to that, I'm here to help, I'm here to add value, I'm here to make an impact, that will turn into success. That will turn into this growth and this journey. And I love seeing how that has happened on such an amazing scale in your business, right? Because you started with this frustration, really in a bad headspace. You're like, I'm just going to share this. Maybe somebody can relate. Maybe it helps one person. And then as you've built this offering, now you're helping people really scale their own lives, which I think is just so incredible. And I think one of the big things in your journey is your books, right? You have 2 books out that you wrote that not only helped your clients, they helped you. So I would love for you to talk through, how did that experience of writing the book, publishing the book, really help not only scale your business, but help you heal and help your clients learn more?
Sure. There were 2 social work journals that, specifically for social workers that are working through their licensing exams. One is called 90 Days of Prayer. It became a 5-time Amazon bestseller within a couple of days of us putting it up. And then 3 months later, we came out with 90 Days, what was it? I'm forgetting my own book, 90 Days of Inspiration. Came out right after that. I wrote both of those books are 100 pages each. I wrote them three weeks apart from each other. I think people were like, what? That's the hyper focusing part.
Mm-hmm. It's great when it works to your benefit, right?
Yes, right. I'll never forget. I for 3 weeks, I wrote both of those back to back, and people was like, what? You did what? And still ran a business on top of it, and not having a team either when I did it. It was interesting because it came from the experience of the journey that was on. I used to write in my son's old kindergarten notebook, and I'm a spiritual woman at heart, so I would write down prayer requests, spiritual scriptures, and I would write them down next to thoughts that I was having. I couldn't afford a therapist at the time, so every day, whether I believed that I was going to make it or not, I would write down a thought or a scripture on top of letting that notebook be a counselor in a way. When I was done with it, it was over, I think, like 300 pages of stuff. And I was like, okay, now that this journey is over, what do I do with this? I want to give people a piece of it that can inspire them. So I came out with both those journals, and they have been impactful in helping my colleagues in mindset and just sticking to it, to give them a little bit piece of me in their journey when I'm not coaching them. And it's been a blessing to be able to see the impact of them.
It's beautiful the way that you have found, daily practices that fill your cup, right? The prayer journaling, spiritual journeying, just staying dedicated to your studies. They helped fill your cup. And so you turned right around and passed them on, right? Of, let me open up this journey to you. Let me help embolden you in the right direction. And I'm a journaler as well. So every morning I wake up, I read a passage in my Bible, I write about it, I write 3 things of gratitude from the day before, an intention for the day, and I do that every morning without fail, because for me, I cannot function if I don't have something to boost my spirit first thing in the morning, right? Then by 2 o'clock, I'm burnt out and I can't function. I surely cannot record a decent podcast at that point. So I love that, building those daily practices that you've been able to pass along, but also just for you that you were able to find peace in and find growth in, because that's so important.
Yeah, it's something I think I needed at the time. And what I've learned is the experiences and challenges that you go through, once you're done with them, what happens to them? Those lessons. And I've been part of, I think the ladder of success for me has been taking those lessons, taking those challenges and giving them to someone else and say, hey, my journey may not be like yours, but here's some of the lessons that I've learned in tangible form that may be helpful to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so empowering for so many people, right? Because you did struggle with rejection and failure. You did overcome hardship. And so, if you were speaking to somebody who is dealing with that struggle, that stagnation, what words of wisdom do you have for them to kind of help them turn it around as well?
I would say, because believe it or not, I still go through challenges in mostly me fighting myself. We can be our worst enemy when it comes to imposter syndrome, or how we look at reality. I think if I was talking to someone who is struggling, I would just tell them that this too shall pass. That sounds really cliche, but every moment, can be bad or good, and how we respond to it is the only part that can matter. That, your response to it is what matters the most. We can't control every part of what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it. That part we can. So when you're stagnant or you're feeling stuck, is it that you're really stuck? Or you're exactly where you need to be to figure out what is needed to go to the next. Sometimes that stuck isn't stuck. It's a pivotal crossroads point of you having to make a decision about, what's going to be the next thing to impact that, the next part of your journey. So I would just tell them to hold on, grab a life vest, whatever that life vest may manifest to be, whether it's a friend, whether it's prayer, whether that's talking to a loved one, because the storm will pass. It doesn't stay. But when you're in it, it feels like hell. It feels like you're going to be there forever. You just want to press the fast forward button to get to the end. But it's in those struggles, it's in those challenges, it's in those hardships that we find the very thing that we need in order to move on. And it's hard when you're in the midst of it. You just want to get past it. But there are lessons there that are needed for you to pull from, that are birthed from, that pull you forward.
Yeah.
That's what I would probably say.
I'm going to drive an interesting parallel, right? So, I'm a career coach. I help people find corporate success and navigate these hardships in the workplace to a job that's going to be more satisfying long-term. And when I think back on my own experience, the hardest job I ever had, where I had to deal with the most difficult boss and the most difficult stakeholders, and I'm logging off work and staring out with dead eyes because I can't believe I just survived another 8 hours, and I'm frustrated and I'm feeling stagnant and I'm facing difficulty. Without that time period, I would not have any of the skills I need to do what I do now. Right. Every
Same.
single moment in that trial by fire is what made it possible to do what I do now. It gave me those skills, though I may have hated it in the moment. And I'm sure there were times where you were like, do I have to have this certification? Right? You get that frustration. But I love the way that you phrase that it's giving you those skills you need to make it through. It's giving you a new tool set that you're going to take forward, because there are two sides to every hardship, right? One side where you're learning and you're grieving a loss and you're experiencing difficulty and you're learning from those. And the flip side of then when you take that and you do something new, right? You change your approach, you change your job, you change the way that you're doing things. And I think you've done that so beautifully with, hey, I didn't pass my exam. You could have just said, okay, I guess I don't need it. I'll go find a minimum wage job doing something else or get back into standard social working and do that. But you didn't. You said, okay, I'm going to practice every day. I'm going to study every day. I'm going to share it every day until I pass. You changed your behavior in a way that then ultimately made you so successful. And I think that that's such a good learning for each of us to be aware in those moments of difficulty. And do you need to make a change? Do you need to make an adjustment to help you go forward from there?
And I think to add to that, in the 8 or 9 months where I was on the struggle bus, I didn't study. I didn't do anything. Like, I have to be honest about that part, because I want people to understand that that was a journey in itself. After I failed November 6th, 2019, it wasn't until August that I actually got back into the mindset of studying. I was video gaming. I was doing Animal Crossing. That was my favorite. I'm a Nintendo gamer. Oh, I was playing with my kids. I think I needed that time to get back in a position to jump back on the saddle. That I never want to give people that impression that I was like studying it, because I wasn't. I didn't get back into that until August. To say, okay, Shara, you got to make a decision. I know you're scared to go back into that exam room, but you have to. You've worked too damn hard not to. And I buckled down and sought help from an emotional standpoint. And as someone that's professionally been in that world, I knew I needed what I needed to do to move forward. But it had more to work to do with looking within myself than anything. To get to that place where I could cultivate what was needed to now go back in and do it again.
Yeah. And you face your own mental challenges. You have a unique way of thinking, a unique perspective. How do you think that shows up now, having gone through that and healed and built this business? How do you think your different way of thinking shows up in your business and shows up in your day-to-day now, where I think a lot of people would look at the situation and go, oh, well, she's not depressed anymore. She doesn't have anxiety anymore. She doesn't struggle with ADHD anymore. Look, she's successful, right? I think a lot of the time we have this false perception that you get successful and like all of these things you struggled with before have magically disappeared. And obviously they don't. So how does that kind of show up in your day-to-day now? It
has. Last year, at the height of my success, at the time, that last year I lost my baby brother. He was killed 5 blocks away from my house, 18. He died leaving, as soon as he left my mom's house, he was shot twice in the chest and the stomach. He was gone, laid out on the street and died. I was in the middle of, I was about to do a live because it was on Monday, February 7th. A friend said, no, you got to shut this whole thing down. You got to run to the hospital, go see your brother. I was like, what do you mean? And I went and my mom comes out screaming, saying they killed my son. And my other brother's shaking his head. And that's when I knew he was gone. And it didn't hit me until we saw his, I got to see at the time, because the COVID procedures had changed where you would be able to go identify the body, and I had to do it through email from my mom to go look at his postmortem pictures. All of that in the midst of the success I was having. And then right after that, my stepfather ended up with lung cancer. They found it earlier, thank God. And then he ended up with brain cancer this year, and now he's cancer free, thank God. But then I ended up in the hospital because of the stress of not taking care of myself, throwing myself into work. On the outside, people saw success, but I was struggling. I was having the nurse come to my house and give me IV therapy treatments because I had my migraines are very debilitating. I haven't had many of them lately, because I think my stress is a lot better and it's more controlled. But making more money doesn't make life stop, and it doesn't make problems go away. Sometimes they get bigger. And for me, and the success that I've had is this past year, with struggling with my own mental health was definitely part of that. Putting boundaries in place, saying no, and being okay with saying no. And knowing that I needed to take care of myself better in order to give the best of myself to others, my family, my clients, my fiance. I can't do that if I'm not in a place to do it. So no, far from the shiny thing people would see with all this success, especially this year. I've had a couple of vulnerable moments where I would post on LinkedIn and say, hey, this is where I'm at. I was getting sick. I was one picture I took where I had an IV in my arm, and an in-home nurse came up to me and she gave me, was having headaches for weeks and weeks, and it was debilitating, even though I still needed to work, taking 6-8 Excedrin per day when they're not good for your liver and there was nothing going on CAT scan in my head. It was more psychosomatic stress. So no, I would never want people, like what I've learned the last 3 years, that life does not change or stop just because, you're on a roll. Yeah.
And yet you display such amazing fortitude and strength, right? And I am so sorry for all that you've been going through and the struggles that you faced. Obviously, that's challenging in a myriad of different ways, emotionally and physically and mentally. But I think your innate strength, your willingness to do what you need, right? Maybe I need help from an assistant nurse. Maybe I need help mentally from a psychologist, and kind of being able to identify those areas in ourselves where we are going to need support. We can't do it alone. We can't operate as an island. I think is so important as well to be resonating with people, because you have such an incredible journey of extreme highs and lows. I saw a comedian the other day said, life is not a scale of 1 to 10. It is 1s and 10s, like 2 through 9 just disappear for a majority of your adulthood. You're either doing really well or you're really struggling. And I think that there's so much in your story that encourages, right, as an example to people to continue to get what you need so that you can give a service to the world that's going to help other people. And I think that that's so amazing. And so if you were going to give, one piece of advice for listeners, parting words on, on building a business, or on serving their fellow man, or on, dealing with anxiety or depression, what would be your parting words that you would want listeners to take and to put into practice?
Parting words, I guess, when it comes to health, your health has to come first. It's either you're going to take care of your body or it's going to shut you down, and you're going to be forced to. That would be 1. 2 is time is everything. I'm at a point now that I've had to hire more, and so I can do less of the mediocre task. So, that's where I'm at in my journey. System and processes. That's kind of where I'm at, and streamlining and really looking at what are the pieces I need to automate. What can I let go so I can do the very thing that I love, and letting my team, trusting them enough that they're living in their talent and gifts. So I can live in mine. I've had to learn that, because the first 2 years I literally may have made revenue 6 figures, but I burned out because I was everybody. I was the video editor. I was the podcast promo. I was the social media manager. I was just everybody in one. It was freaking exhausting. There's a lot that I don't like doing. I don't like email marketing. I hate it. There are certain aspects of business that are just not for me, and I've had to learn to trust people to do their part so I can do mine. And that's important. especially if you're starting out as a business or you may not have the revenue yet, but start figuring out what are the things that you hate. So when you do get to the point where you need to, really, delegate, that you can, because I've learned, because I'm a control freak, I've learned that I am, happier, and less stressed if I give people tasks that I don't want to do. That would be probably something that I've learned recently, that I was like, oh, I should have done this a long time ago. But, you live and you learn, you're resistant till you can't be anymore. So that would be delegation, and timing is everything. And be in it for the long haul. When people look at my success, they think, I had one lady reach out on LinkedIn and say, hey, everything you touch is gold. I said, no, boo, that's 18 years being in the field, plus another 3 of really building my community. It took a couple of years. People are seeing kind of like the tip of the iceberg, when the bottom of the iceberg is the failures, the late nights, the missing time away from my son and my family, saying no to events because I'm having to, be with clients, or having to really, make a sacrifice. There is something on the other side of success that people don't realize, the work and the time that people don't see. And if they, if you're told you're making it easy, to, and they don't realize that easy means really hard. I know that was a lot in one, but that's kind of where my thoughts come in of what, I've been told that I make some parts of this social media and all of that look easy. I'm like, y'all don't even know. The weekends of shooting 50 videos and putting them out, coming up with the content. Of course, AI and technology makes it a little easier, but I used to do that before ChatGPT came out. I was doing that for 7 different platforms by hand for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's trial by fire, but knowing that you have a gift and knowing that it's okay to charge what you're worth. Being willing to be flexible and meeting people where they are, but being willing to be non-negotiable with yourself and your values.
I love it. So many great tidbits in there about setting good boundaries for yourself, living in your gifts, delegating to others so that they can live in their gifts, putting your health first, so many great things that you touched on, Shara. So if you listen to this episode and you want to learn more about Shara, you can find her on LinkedIn. You can find her at Journey to Licensure. And then I will also tag her website and all of her books in the show notes below so that you guys can check those out. But Shara, it was amazing having you on the episode. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you for walking us through your journey.
Thank you for having me on and allowing me to share.
Appreciate it.